Hello and welcome to the first edition of Putting Out Fires. I'm Dennis Rubin, the interim fire chief for Kansas City, Kansas Fire Department, and we're so glad to have you here today. As part of our communication strategy, we're going to be producing a monthly video magazine so that you can keep up with all the issues occurring inside of our fire department. Just think about it. We operate out of 19 fire stations on 3 shifts for a total of 57 workplaces, and then add headquarters, training, the maintenance shop, and it's pretty easy to see we have a large responsibility to communicate to keep you tied in with our organization. Each month we're going to have a couple of great guests on that's going to talk about something that's going to impact your career, your opportunity, what's going on in your fire station and your community. I'm really glad today to be joined by 2 outstanding experts. First is Mallory Super, who's going to talk a little bit to us today about peer support. Also, we have Chief John Droppelman, who is going to discuss what's happening in our organization with fireworks and perhaps even a few fire prevention questions. So with that, I hope you sit back, relax, and enjoy the first edition of Putting Out Fires. So with that, I'm going to start with Mallory. How are you doing today?
I am doing awesome, thank you.
Cool. Thank you for being here. We appreciate all the great work that you do. And tell us a little bit about the purpose of the program of providing peer support for our members.
Well, the purpose is kind of dual-fold. So we want to welcome new recruits into the fire service by providing things like family nights and resources. And we want to keep that going as they go through their career. And we want to host more family nights, but this has a little bit different purpose because now they're a little more grounded in their careers. They've seen some things and they might be ready to talk about some things that they've experienced.
Wow, how interesting. What's a typical family night look like?
Family night for recruits is all about education. We want them to have a better understanding of what they might be getting into in their careers. We also want their families to realize that there is support for them as well.
Why would a family member of a firefighter need any kind of support at all?
That's a very good question. So the thing is, we work together on a 24-hour shift, but we also take things home that we don't realize we're taking home. And so that goes directly to our family, and it can impact the family system in a number of ways.
Do you mind being specific? What do we take home?
We take home a lot of our frustrations, really. Things that didn't get solved in a way that we were hoping they would get solved. Maybe there are some issues between crew members that the interaction wasn't the best that it could be.
Stressors in general.
Stressors, absolutely, yes.
Cool. So keep on the roll. I'm just trying to help. I think the information is amazing. I can tell you, having come to work many years ago, nothing like this existed.
No.
So having the chance for the family members to know what's the outbound, what's the goal, what's the purpose to...
The goal is to connect them with resources as well.
The family members.
The family members, yes. Yeah, and we can actually connect them with whether it's EAP, that seems to kind of be more in their wheelhouse. If they need support groups, that is also extremely important. Even something like, hey, you have a brand new baby, what do you do next? Those kinds of resources.
So it reduces the stress, probably, hopefully would eliminate the need for marriage counseling or even worse, divorce.
Yes.
I know that a typical firefighter in our country, about 1/3 of the time, is at the fire station.
Yes.
Even when it's birthdays or probably at the fire
anniversaries,
station.
yes, all those important days.
And heaven forbid, but their spouse or child has a problem with their automobile and they're on duty, they may not be able to help. What do you think? Is that a possibility?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, we miss out on important family events all the time, and we're just doing our job. There's nothing we can do to help that situation.
What else happens at family night? Is there a meal or is it, and describe that a little bit. I like to talk about meals.
I love to talk about meals.
Yeah, cool.
Yes. So we had our second annual family night with this last academy that just graduated, and They had Joe's KC, and that really, to me, that's kind of the first fire family meal that they get. So we got to sit down, share stories, share food, share a little bit of knowledge, little experience, and it really kind of welcomes them into the idea of gathering around the table and enjoying a meal together.
And probably the people that are in that room become pretty much connected throughout their careers. They begin disclosing information about themselves. They get better connected through the group. They learn about their other friends and colleagues, family members, and it becomes a larger family. Did I say that right?
You nailed it. You nailed it.
Cool. And we only do that for recruits, or is that?
So right now, yes, but my hope is that we can extend that to a kind of larger audience at some point.
Excellent. And again, it sounds like it's an amazing program, doing wonderful things, and it's helping quite a bit. I know by going to a few conferences, there's always talk about self-harm and the need for EAP. What's some advice there?
I think you have to be unafraid to ask the direct questions. Instead of asking, hey, are you going to harm yourself? It is completely acceptable to ask, are you going to kill yourself? Because harm and killing, two completely separate meanings. And so it does kind of give the person getting asked the question some pause and maybe a chance to be completely honest with where they're at.
Wow, that's excellent. So I learned a little something today by understanding, do ask the tough questions. Mm-hmm. I can tell you I responded to a person preparing to jump off a bridge. Okay. And as that person was in the process, there was an engine, a ladder, got to change my language. There was a pumper in a truck company. There was a couple of other support people involved, probably about a dozen in all. And I bet you I was there about 5 minutes before the person did take a dive. Mm-hmm. Horrible, not survivable. Did the best we could with the precious human remains. But I found something pretty interesting. We had a couple of pastors that had some training in doing some critical incident stress debriefing. And I asked those pastors to please visit the fire stations that were represented by that pumper company and that truck company. And it was amazing because they gave a very interesting report. I know it was not for me to be there for fear as though it was a review of the incident or who did what right or who did what wrong, and that was the last thing we were worried about, just making sure people were okay, healthy, and happy. And the pastors reported that at both stations, they were rebuffed. There's nothing here, nothing going on, nothing here to see. Keep moving kind of an attitude. They were a little bit older. One was a Catholic priest. One was an Episcopal Methodist African pastor. Mm-hmm. And after a short period of time, they had a cup of coffee. They sat around the table, and about 10 minutes into a non-discussion, all of a sudden, the discussion really started. The discussion was around what they saw. One thing that was really prevalent is when the gentleman struck the pavement, the sound it made was really something that you will remember for a lifetime. And they talked about that. And before it was done, all of the discussion emotions came flooding out. And they reported that after that, everybody was pretty happy, pretty healthy, and it repeated itself from one station to another. Have you seen that in the past? Yes.
When we started doing debriefs and introducing the idea of peer support, there was a huge holdout. There was the mindset, we don't do this, we don't talk about this. And then all it really took was one senior member to start talking in a debrief, and it's as if the floodgates opened. Everyone felt like, oh, it's okay. I can talk about this in front of my peers. And since then, I think people are almost disappointed if there isn't what I like to call the reach out text, which I text anyone that has been involved in any type of incident that could be considered critical. And so people actually get disappointed if they don't get a text from me.
How does that work with the shift commanders or battalion chiefs or company officers? Are they aware that you're doing that?
Yes, they are aware. I've had nothing but support though.
I'm sure that you would, but this is what I was wondering. There's never any crossover. In other words, you set up something, it gets started, and then all of a sudden the shift commander or battalion chief or captain's reaching out to someone else. It's always coordinated.
Right.
Always runs smoothly. Fantastic.
Yes.
Fantastic. Anything that we should know about looking for any peer support? How would they contact you? Can they get information if it involves an off-duty, like a marriage issue?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, how?
So we do have a website. We are back on the KCKFD server, and you can search our peer support, which we are local 64 peer support. We have our own tab, and it has all kinds of resources there. It does mention the EAP as well as our code to get into the EAP system, and it has providers who are vetted by our team, and they are first responder competent.
Wow, that is outstanding. Is there any other mechanisms? Is there any phone numbers? What else should a person know to be able to access the system, or is it always through that portal?
So there is that portal. I'm pretty sure that everyone on the fire department has my phone number, but it also has bios and contact information for the 20 members on the team as well. So I know that I'm not always the best fit for people. That way they can pick out someone that maybe they're more familiar with.
Do they usually, the members in need, do they usually engage through you, or they pick whomever they feel most comfortable with?
It's been about 50-50. Honestly, there is always that connection, if it's maybe your captain potentially, and they're like, I feel good going to him. So they might reach out to him, and if it's above his head, he may get in touch with me.
Let's brag about you a little bit. What's your training background?
Oh gosh.
I thought so.
I did get my master's in counseling psychology 3 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Spectacular.
I'm also a first responder psychologist, and I have all kinds of different clients at this time.
Wow, that's fantastic. I know a lot of fire departments have started with a psychologist or a psychiatrist that is on the staff full-time. I know Houston, I think, just hired their second one, LA City, LA County. I think there's 2 or 3 in New York, and I could go on. Pretty cool to have that resource available, and we have that with you.
Yes.
That's been fantastic. Chief, it's great to have you here. Our Fire Marshal, John Droppelman, amazing person, does incredible work. How are you doing today, Chief?
I'm fantastic today. Looking forward to a lot of sleepless nights coming forward with fireworks season.
Unfortunately, 4th of July is a great celebration for our country. That's not the unfortunate part, but the unfortunate part is all the peripheral things that brings. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement, yes it is.
I want to say that there'll be something like over 1,000 fires started in the United States associated with fireworks in the 4th of July window. Is that pretty close?
At least,
and I think 6 or 8 people will die. And again, hundreds upon hundreds will get injured in that process.
That's correct.
Have we had any history in the past, Chief, that you can recall?
We have a lot of history in the past. We haven't had as many fires lately in the last few years.
Good.
I remember my first year as the shift investigator, and I think we had 4 at the same time. And the investigators came out from call and helped out. That was a long night. We haven't had a night like that in probably 4 years, 5 years. So unfortunately, we're overdue. I hope that doesn't happen. Maybe people are a little more safer now, but we'll see.
I think July 4th is on a Tuesday.
Correct. It's on a Tuesday.
So I'm kind of asking you to please keep it quiet. And I know that's not necessarily within your realm of capabilities, but what should our members know? What are some of the interesting, either statistics or facts, or what do you expect out of a member that's riding a piece of fire apparatus on July 3rd or 4th or 5th, anywhere in that window where you know we're going to have a lot of fireworks activities?
So I just finished going through the street closures, for one thing. The 4th of July actually scares me more than Halloween for our crews responding through subdivisions and things. It's against the city ordinance to light fireworks in streets and sidewalks and things, but there's so many small yards in the city that that's where they do it. And the smoke that's produced in the evenings during the prime time, there's kids darting out. They don't hear the sirens and stuff, and so they really need to approach those areas and use extra caution when navigating the streets on emergency calls.
Some of the fireworks, like Roman candles would be an example, they have a shrill, high-pitched sound, much like a siren. Did I say that right?
That's correct.
So
yes.
It would be easy to be confused, lose sight of the fact that a fire truck is coming along. And I suspect children 6, 7, 8 years old get so excited and wrapped up. I think they're focused primarily and specifically on the firework and not on the traffic.
They are. You'll see them dart between cars, across driveways, and not all subdivisions or areas have associations that apply for block parties where they can close off a strip of the street. It'd be nice if we could close a lot of stuff down, but we still have to be able to navigate through the city. So they only allow so many in a certain area.
The streets that are closed will all be for purposes of public demonstrations.
They're for individual block parties. So you may have a neighborhood group and they will apply for the city permit. The city will come out and barricade either end of the street so nobody can get through. Now, they're movable barricades, so if we have a fire or an EMS incident on that street, we can get out and move them, get down the street slowly, but normal traffic cannot.
And with a firefighter that goes to a call, a captain, whatever it may be, whatever the member's rank might be, and would you automatically know if there's an injury or a fire directly associated, or is that something you'd like them to report to you in a special memo or an email? How would you get connected with that?
I think half the time we get dispatched, we don't know
Okay.
whether there's a fire or what. I think once we get to the scene, some that are curious may look a little further. It takes the investigator usually to arrive there to determine what actually happened. But starting tomorrow, Tuesday the 27th, we've added to our INPERS report a section where if fireworks are involved, whether it's an EMS call, a trash fire, a house fire, a car fire, or any kind of damage, whether it's damage to a mailbox or something like that, that they mark that box so that we can keep statistics on that.
Wow, it's really important, as we both well know, and I'm glad you brought that up. You mentioned about the mailbox. That would also require making certain that the postal inspector is aware if it's a mailbox.
If it's a group mailbox, yes. Individual mailbox, it's usually a criminal property damage type thing, depending on what's used in it. If it's an illegal firework or just a regular one you buy at the stands, the regular ones can cause significant damage to anything that's enclosing it, keeping it pressure wave locked
The
in.
more pressure, the worse it is,
The
isn't it?
worse it is,
Yes,
correct.
sir.
So the investigators, we would notify the correct federal agencies if we feel that we have to go that route.
I did not realize until a few years back that the postal inspectors are federal police officers that have a lot of authority over the mail trucks, over the mailboxes, anything associated with the U.S. mail, and they carry weapons.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, so interesting. So again, if it does involve mail, to make sure to go through your office, that we can get the correct agencies connected so that we're doing the proper things on our end.
Correct.
How about the power or the rate of burn for some of the fireworks? Can you talk about that from a strictly a fire protection understanding operationally what we're up against?
So when you think of the fireworks that the public purchases, they're a 1.G explosive classification, which technically isn't an explosive. It's a flammable solid, but there's also a novelty part, which you can buy any day of the week at Walmart's or big box stores. And what's one of the things they sell there? The sparklers. Sparklers can operate at 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is almost that of an arc welder. So that touches you, child, clothing, it's going to ignite something, burn something very quickly. Not much of a chance to react to it.
You mentioned about clothing. I think there's usually demonstrations, and you hear about children and their clothing catching on fire, putting a sparkler in their pocket as an example. So thorough, clear adult supervision would be something that we would hope the neighborhoods engage in.
That's correct. The retailers here are not allowed to sell to juveniles. You have to be over 16 to purchase from a stand. And then we push what NFPA suggests, that all fireworks should be closely supervised by an adult. Children should not be using them on their own.
Without a doubt, my first 4th of July here, are there any public displays where the fireworks are discharged by a professional?
So that's what we recommend, is let the professionals do it. There are 3 commercial displays here in the city during this weekend. The first one will be probably the largest one at Pearson Park down in the Turner area. It's put on by Turner Rec, and they will close off the park. A little tricky maybe to do some parking. They'll have to kind of block some streets off, PD and the sheriff's department, the more and more people that show up. But there's a lot of viewing places to be able to see that one. That one lasts for 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes. It's a beautiful display. There's a smaller one on the 1st of July. It'll be at Mount Carmel Church down off 12th and Parallel. They use typically consumer grade stuff, but it's done by professionals and timed. Goes off very well. And then also on the 1st, Sporting Kansas City at Children's Mercy Park, they will have a large display after the game. It's hard to tell exactly when that one starts. The other ones start after dark, but if the soccer game goes into overtime or whatever, that one may not start till 10:30, but that's a very large display. There's lots of parking out at the Legends where you can sit in your car and pull out a chair and watch that.
Wow, that's excellent. Will we have a fire department present at any one for all of those?
We will have inspectors at all of them. We inspect a pre-setup and a post-setup, and this year I'm concerned, probably much like you are, we're starting to start a drought time. We're seeing a lot of grass turn brown. I was hoping we were going to get some rain this weekend. That didn't happen. So any rain we would get between now and the 4th isn't going to do anything to green that grass up. So we are making provisions to have some extra equipment and crews stand by at these. I'm also requiring the operators to have extra water extinguishers present so that they can keep their spot fires under control.
Does it require a permit?
Yes, it does. So commercial displays require a permit. It goes to the business licensing office. It's approved of by myself, business licensing and city legal, to make sure it's done safely and correctly.
Excellent again. And any advice? I walked into Menards. What an amazing store. But the first 2 or 3 gondolas selling items was all fireworks. And I get it. I know it's sprinklered. But boy, I think there would be a lot of danger if in fact any of that caught fire. Would you, in your opinion there?
They're restricted to a certain amount of weight in any one spot based on where the location is. We not only monitor fireworks there, but in the wintertime we monitor kerosene.
Good.
Different fuels, they're only allowed to have so much, or they have to change their sprinkler design or put it in safer containment areas.
Wow, excellent. What numbers of folks do you think you'll have on extra during that holiday weekend?
So we have our normal inspection crew. We just monitor, we adjust our work times. We'll come in later on Friday because the retail stands stay open till 10 o'clock at night. We're typically out till 11 or so, making sure they're shut down and taken care of throughout that time. So we try to start later because we know we're going to end later to minimize some of the costs to the city. But we don't have extra staff. We just have what we have available. Wow,
that's amazing that you're able to cover all those bases and take care of all those issues. The danger associated with pyrotechnics, as we both know, is pretty real. It's pretty significant. And I'll be amazed if there's not a couple of national incidents that garner the headlines and, again, disasters that occur. So we hope that all of our members pay attention. Trying to recap, I think you indicated go slow in the neighborhoods, which I'd recommend that all the time, but on the 4th of July, a little extra care would be important. Remember that there has been a drought and that expect associated fires. Rooftops, especially with any type of combustible finishes, are always of concern, or sidings. And then any grass or other area that is starting to brown up, pay extra attention to that. Did I get them all, or is there any other ones?
I think you got them all, yes.
Fantastic. Chief, thank you for being here on the first edition of Putting Out Fires. I think it's important for our members to understand what's happening. Mallory, just a tremendous amount of information. I'm sure your phone's going to be ringing off the hook with folks wanting more details about how to access programs and the resources that you have available. Chief, I know for 4th of July, it only comes once a year, but by the time we get to New Year's and other events, I'm sure fireworks will be back out, and we'll have to consider about revisiting this topic and doing that as well. I cannot thank you both, and for our viewing audience, we truly appreciate what you do. Our hope is that you're always safe in the fire stations as well as at the incidents. Remember, if you get injured or if there's a problem or an issue at an event, at an incident, you're not going to be able to help the community. So please, we're begging you to be safe out there. This is just about the end of the first edition of Putting Out Fires. Another component of the program that we'll be sending out every month will be a question and answer period. Burning Questions is an opportunity for you, our members, to hear from us. So with that, thank you, and we're ready to take the first question now.
Derek Kemp, my question for you is, with the 6-7 months that you're going to be here, just curious of your changes that you're going to have for the organizational charts, for the policies, and just the overall goals for the fire department that you have.
Derek, that's a great question, and thank you for being part of the program today. In the next 6 months, what we'll do is to try to set up a committee. In fact, we'll set up a committee. The committee will review all of the policies. What policies need to be revised? What policies need to be developed? There's several that I wish we had in the can already. For instance, I think we ought to have a policy on severe weather. The last time I checked, I think Kansas is famous for tornadoes. And again, we should have that type of plan ready to go. Also, we'll be taking a look closely at things like incident command, special events, anything in that realm that makes our life a little easier. If you're interested in being on one of those committees that's going to do the review work, the members will have a say in the policy. I would love you to be a part of that. Secondly, once we have the policies ready, the next part is to train on those policies. It's great to have a policy, but if you don't use it, if you don't train on it, it's virtually useless. So I'm hoping that we can have an initial training period. Once those policies get prepared, we'll use the training division to deliver that information along with some way to revise it. Perhaps maybe on this show or in another mechanism, we'll cover one policy a month, but we have to have them, they have to be updated, we have to train on them, and then of course it's up to all of us to be able to apply those. Thank you again, Derek. The next question that we're going to cover is from Captain Richardson.
Chief Rubin, do you see any point where tradition may impede, if not destroy, the growth of the fire department?
I think there's two types of tradition. Some of the traditions that we have in our business are absolutely excellent. There's a rich tradition that goes behind. It has developed over many, many years, and the process is just excellent. However, there are many other traditions that do impede progress. A couple that I would mention is, as a young firefighter, we scrubbed the tires after each run, whether they needed it or not, whether it was raining or not. And what we learned is that was a holdover from wetting the wheels to make sure that the wood stayed saturated and that the metal around the wooden wheel would not slip away and cause the vehicle to crash. So what we learned over time was, by washing the wheels so often, even when the brakes are hot, it would cause the brakes to warp and cause a real serious problem. So that was pretty easy to get out of. Another negative one for us is that there was members that were new in the station, and if they were in probation, they'd have to stand to eat like second-class citizens. Once we learned that, we stopped that right away, and that would be a negative tradition. Some of the positive traditions, ringing of the bells would be an example. The Dalmatian is just absolutely an incredible part of the process. And again, there's so many other traditions, from uniforms to how the station looks to how members address themselves. So I think most of the traditions are good, worthy of keeping, updating perhaps, and making sure that they're functional. Some of the traditions, you're right, may need to go away and probably have outlived their usefulness. All right, that has it. That's a wrap, as we say in the business. Truly appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule to be a part of putting out the fires.